I think you're fascinating. The way that your brain works and you put things together, it's really cool to witness your genius in, like, you stepping into your genius. I know a few people in this world, and there's not very many people that are standing in their genius, and I admire that about you. I admired that about you when I very first met you, and a little envious, actually. Like, I think that that's amazing, because a lot of people, men, are they're struggling to find their genius. They're looking for, what is my thing? What am I good at? And I think I found mine, and in so finding it, there's a tremendous amount of fulfillment and liberation, satisfaction and happiness that comes with it. But it's really cool to meet another man that's just like, this is my thing. This is what I do, and I'm happiest when I'm doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I see that, and for me, like, that authenticity is really important. Like I said, like, being authentic to who you are. But I think that one of the things about our culture, and I think this is, men in general, is that we're really afraid to suck at something. Like, just own it. Own it, that I am doing something that I like, that I suck at. And I don't give a crap that you think it sucks.
But I'm going to play that horn
But I'm
loud.
going to do it.
Yeah.
Like there's this great quote that I try to live by, and it's from Mel Brooks. So when Mel Brooks was doing The Producers back in, this is in the early 80s.
Yeah.
And they had the whole Springtime for Hitler music part.
Yes.
And he was like, and he's Jewish, right? And he was like, am I going too far? Like, this has the potential to just really rile people up and piss them off, and they won't laugh. They'll be angry. They'll be angry. And he said something. He said, you know what? I realized that if I was going to ring that bell, I was going to walk up and I was going to ring the hell out of that bell. I was going to ring it as loud and as hard as I possibly could. And I was going to walk away with my head held high. And so I look at that as, I consider myself a good author now. I've learned a lot over the past 10 years as a novelist. When I worked in television, I wrote a lot of scripts, both documentary and film, and I won awards for those, but writing a novel is a completely different animal. And so now I'm like, I'm a good writer. I have no doubt about that. I can pump out good stuff. But for a long time, I was not. And I had to go to critique groups and get ripped into, and I had to learn all of this stuff of how to actually craft things in a way that was readable. And I had to learn all that stuff. And I had to be okay with the fact that I wasn't good, and still do it, and just be like, well, I'm still going to do it because I'm going to get better tomorrow. And I think that if we can get out of our heads of worrying whether or not we're really good at something, and just look and say, okay, what do I want to do? What is it that I feel that I'm drawn to? And if we go after that thing, we're going to suck at the beginning, and that's fine. And you might suck for years, but it doesn't matter, because if you're doing the thing that you feel confident that you should be doing, then you're going to find joy, because you're going to be authentic to yourself. You're not going to be putting on any sort of mask. Yeah. Because we think that masks give us freedom, right? When you put on a mask, like I was talking to somebody, I was like, I can sing bass. I can sing a bass line pretty well. Like in a choir.
Okay.
I can sing bass. But I can't sing other than that. But if I'm pretending to be someone else, then I can sing. And actors are that way. Like you like Bradley Cooper was in what's it called? Star is Born, right?
Yeah.
And they were like, well, you sing beautifully. And he's like, no, I don't. It's like, yes, I'm the one who's singing, but it's not me. It's that character. When I was in that character, I could sing. Benjamin Bratt, who plays in Coco, who is Ernesto de la Cruz. Exact same thing. He's like, Benjamin Bratt can't sing, but when I'm Ernesto de la Cruz, I can sing.
Huh. So
we think about when we put on masks that it gives us freedom, and sometimes it does. But if we keep that mask on for too long, then we're no longer living our authentic self. And when we're not living our authentic self, suddenly we become unhappy. And that's why actors that's why oftentimes you get into drugs. And because they're not being their authentic self, they're trying to be something that they think that they should be when, in that actor lifestyle, and they're not.
But they're incongruent.
Yeah. And so they're not getting joy because they're not doing what they actually are meant to do. And so when we stop and we think and we look at, okay, what is it that I want? And it might not be the same in 5 years, and that's fine. We're too, and I'm part of the problem because we're too into stories. And in stories, you can't change characters too much because it feels inauthentic. If they do something that doesn't make sense, you're like, well, that's not what they would do. Unfortunately, real people do that all the time. We do that all the time. We act out of character all the time. And we change and we evolve. And so what we want now is not the same as we wanted them 5 years ago. I've gotten really into, I've collected action figures for a long time. I have a beautiful collection. It's my pride and joy.
Shelf collapsing collection.
Oh, dude, it's awesome. It's amazing. I love it. But I've gotten into customizing action figures. So painting them, adding details, turning them into completely other characters. I've gotten really into it. But now I'm starting to move a little bit away from that because I've felt myself drawn toward painting. And it's like, and I know that I've got my canvases now and I got my paints, and I am going to be no good for the first while. And that is just fine. I don't care, because maybe in a few years I will be good. And I'm not doing it to be good. I'm not doing it to have my stuff hung in a gallery. That's not why. And that's not why we should make those decisions. If we're making those decisions because we want the appraisal of other people so that we can validate ourselves, then we're never going to be happy. That's why so many people are unhappy.
How long have you known this? Like, is this something you've had your whole life?
The older I get, the more it makes sense. And starting the business 6 years ago was a real catalyst, because it wasn't just about being authentic to myself, but also understanding like real faith of like, every time I've needed something, every time, and you can say it's God or it's the universe or whatever, there is some type of universal principle that when you set out to do something, and if you don't give up, you will achieve it. That's just, it is a universal principle.
We've become, it feels to me, and I'm going to sound like my dad here for a second, but we've become quitters too soon.
Yeah.
That we're not sticking with it. And I've got a boatload of instruments at home to prove it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've got a ukulele. I play poorly.
Well,
right.
But you've also got to have that drive.
Yeah.
To realize, what is it that I want? And it's okay to start something and be like, I really hate this, and put it aside. Like some people they'll talk, if my kids get into something, I'm going to force them to do it. And for me, it's like, if my kids want to try something and they don't enjoy it, then I'm not going to force them to do it. And say, okay, what's your next thing? Yeah. What's your next thing? Well, I want to try this. Okay. Because eventually they're trying to figure out who they are, just like we're as adults trying to figure out who we are.
Yeah.
And it'll be something that they can kind of gravitate towards, and eventually they're going to find it.
Yeah.
And I want them to have that same, I would want that same freedom. Like when I was in high school, I all through my childhood, I played baseball, and I really enjoyed it. And then once I got into high school and I started playing baseball, I started really hating it, because it felt like a job. It was no longer, I was not having any fun anymore. It was, and I was pretty good. I wasn't like a star player by any means, but I was all right. But it got to the point where it was like, okay, everyone here is super serious about it, like it's going to be their life. And I started hating it. And I remember being afraid to go to my parents and say, I don't want to be on the baseball team. And I remember telling them that and saying, I want to quit. I don't want to do it anymore. I'm really not enjoying it. Having them go, okay, not a problem.
That was it?
That was it. And it was like this giant weight lifted off of my shoulders. And so it's like, as an adult, I want that type of grace of, if I want to not do something because I really hate it, I want to give that same grace to my kids. I don't want to force, if you don't want to do piano anymore, that's cool, but I want you to challenge yourself. So what's the next challenge? Oh, well, I want to do acrobatics. Okay, well, then we're going to do a year of acrobatics. And at the end of that year, then we can reevaluate. If you want to continue, you can.
Can we go back to the principle? And maybe I'm asking, dad to dad, but how do you teach the principle of not caring more about what others think about you than what you think about you? Because I know your kids, and there's a subtle that in all of them, and I'm like, these kids are, who they are. They're discovering who they are. They are secure in their knowing. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
So how do you teach that?
I think that a lot of it comes from example. A lot of it just comes from understanding that I'm still just a little kid. I'm still just figuring stuff out. And I remember looking at my dad and my mom and thinking they had everything figured out. And then getting to the point where I was an adult, especially when I was starting my business and things were hard, and thinking about all the hard times my parents had where they were barely able to put food on the table. And realizing that I never worried about it because I was a kid. And then understanding, okay, my dad was just a dude who was trying to figure things out. And so if I'm just a dude trying to figure things out, then my kids are just dudes trying to figure things out. And so if I can say, okay, what would I want as an adult? How would I want to be treated? And what kind of grace would I want? And then I just try and offer that to my kids. And it's the same thing of the idea of we judge ourselves on our intentions and we judge other people on their actions.
We judge ourselves on intentions and we judge other people on their actions. Well, what else would we judge them on? Because we can't see anything else.
But that's the thing, is that if we're judged on our actions and not on our... So we always give ourselves grace because we understand what we were trying to do when we did something stupid and hurt someone's feelings. That wasn't our intention. Very few people are that way. There's very few really bad people in the world. But there's a whole bunch of people that are just being people and things kind of conflict and run into each other, right? It's a complicated world. We judge ourselves on what we intended to have happen, but we don't judge other people on what they intended to have happen. We automatically add like what we think they wanted, which was he cut me off on purpose because he's a jerk and he's a horrible person, as opposed to saying I've cut people off and most of the time it was a mistake because I didn't see him or whatever, or or they were going a little bit faster, whatever it is. And so I think trying to do that in our homes where we're like, okay, I'm not going to judge the intentions of the people around me. I'm going to give them the same grace that I would want. And I'm going to give them that benefit of the doubt. And if I do that to my kids, then they'll feel safe in the home. And they'll feel like, okay, I am free to make mistakes. It's okay for me to mess up. It's okay for me to not be good at something. And I think that we give way too much value to people who succeed easily. Like that they're somehow more intelligent, that much more intelligent, or that much more hardworking, or that much more talented.
Yeah, for anything. And
in truth, they're not. There's like they've proven scientifically there's a huge amount of luck that goes into a lot of success. Most people who succeeded had to put their head down and work for a really long time in order to make it happen.
And fail and
learn. And then suddenly, they're an overnight success 10 years in the making.
Yeah.
But we look at the people who had the luck moment, that they had the right idea at the right moment and it worked. Because I've had people who have had wonderful ideas. Like one of my really good friends, Drew Tyler, almost 20 years ago, he came up with the idea of co-working. And he started a co-working space. Today, that would have taken off wonderfully. He completely crashed and burned because the idea didn't start to really jive for about 5 years after that. That's when co-working really exploded. So he had an amazing idea that 5 years later would have been a huge success, but he had it too early. And so it wasn't the idea, it wasn't the fact that he worked hard, it wasn't any of that stuff.
Wrong timing.
It was wrong timing. And he had no control over that. And so we give all of this sort of praise to individuals who had that moment, that they are this amazing thing. And we like that overnight success story.
Yeah.
But in truth, when you're an overnight success, it's really easy to think it was you and that it didn't have anything to do with anything outside of you. And then you, kind of like Gavin, you lose respect for
the process.
Yeah. And then you look at all the other people who busted their butts and worked nights and did all that stuff to succeed. And they don't get the same sort of accolades, but they're also in a better place because they did that, because they went through that. And so, so many of those principles just kind of tie together. But for Becky and I, we just wanted our kids to know that our home was always safe for them, no matter what. Because we don't have kids aren't bad or good. Kids are, they exist. And you help to mold them into what hopefully then becomes a productive adult that serves other people and that can find joy in the moments where things are hard. And so we were like, if we can create an environment where they know that they're safe and that they're safe to screw up, that they're safe to not be good at something, then when they grow up, when they become teenagers, they'll know that it's okay for them not to be good at something. And it won't be this thing where they're just suddenly like, oh, my life has fallen apart because I didn't succeed right away. They're able to look and go, oh, well, that's okay, because I didn't do it very good, but I really like this, so I'm going to try again. And then they try again, and then they succeed. And I think that's, for us, has been a really good thing that's helped our children to succeed at a very high level, and just not to have to push them, where it's just like, if you don't like it, you don't like it, and that's fine. But I don't want you to step away just because it's hard, because if you're doing it because it's what you want, then it's going to be hard. If you just hate it because it's terrible, well, then let's reevaluate. But if this is what you want, it's gonna be hard, and that's okay.
Put in the work.
Yeah.
Man.
There's a whole list of wisdoms and golden nuggets there.
Yeah. Topher has a hard job of like withdrawing like the nuggets and making us good quotes on Facebook and social media, and sometimes we just get like, oh, there's a bunch, and good luck picking a good one out of that list of good ones.